So literally, they do not know I'm recording this right now. They're about to find out and they're about to say hi. So here's how this is going to work moving forward. Instead of posting new decks just on all of the other socials, I'm going to make less decks, test them more effectively, and get a video out to you at night from here on out when it comes to new cards. We're going to try the new cards, and this is going to be a before and after video. So I'm going to show you the 4 decks that we're going to test, and I'm curious to see which one does best by the end of the video. By the end of the video, I'll also give my ranking about what I think about the new card. So we're going to head over and take a look right now at the Fallen One. So you can see, because it's grayed out, the card hasn't even come out yet. I don't have it at the time of recording. We're 2 hours before the card actually goes live. Here are the decks that I have created. I'm calling this one Fallen from Grace. Pretty straightforward. I think a lot of people are going to do variations of this, and they're going to create, look, Nimrod, Arnim Zola, Black Panther, all those kinds of things are going to be very successful and very popular. But the one that I want to specifically shout out here that I don't think enough people are talking about is Elixir. And I love the idea of putting Kid Omega down and then being able to destroy and revive simultaneously, right? So if you're doing the whole Nimrod line and then bringing back Nimrods, it's going to be great. If you're doing the whole line of Luna Snow and ramping things out to get the Fallen One on the ahead of that ramp of energy, that's also great. But you have to truly understand what the Fallen One is going to do, okay? The way that it's worded is a little weird, but allow me to explain. So as a 5/5 on reveal, set your max energy equal to this card's power. So it's a 5 power card. If you play it on turn 5, it will be 5 is your max energy. And then go to turn 6, you get +1. So it's essentially breaking even if you play it as is. So there's 2 things that you want to do with this card. Number 1, you want to increase the power of the card. So that way, when you play it, you get a higher max energy going into the next turn. Or you want to ramp this card out early to get the extra energy ahead of time. With that in mind, it makes sense to play this with cards like Shuri and to play with cards like Symbiote Spider-Man in a lane all of its own. Getting 10 energy on the final turn, woohoo! Getting 12 energy on the final turn, woohoo! But even 1 energy extra can change the entire curve in the way you play a deck. So if you can play Luna Snow on 3 into Fallen One on 4, you're now 1 energy ahead. That allows you some more flexibility for getting extra mechanics to happen later on in the final 2 turns because it's only 1 extra energy. I like the idea of ramping that out and having a backup plan because we all know Shuri, Black Panther, Arnim Zola. I debated about using Wong in this deck, but Wong doesn't help the Fallen One specifically because it's set your max energy equal to this card's power. Therefore, it's not adding 5 every time. It's just setting the same number twice. So I think variations of this are going to be very popular. You don't have to have Kid Omega. If you don't, you can play directly into that same line by using cards like Deathlock. It's more approachable for a lot more people, but I do think that Kid Omega has a home here and we shouldn't ignore it either. So keep an eye out for these decks to be very popular, which means this is a dangerous week for Shang-Chi, but it's a great week for Shadow King. There's your tech getting ahead of the curve type things. All right. Now, this is Manda Pix pra mim. It's a pixie deck, right? It's a pixie deck with the Fallen One. Now, I don't think people have really experimented with this idea of go ahead and lower the cost to get it out faster. So let's play Pixie. Let's get War Machine out here. Let's get Infonaut down super easy. Let's get Jubilee pulling those cards out. Let's mess around with the Pixie deck and ramp this card faster because getting a Blink even reduced down to 4 cost, which allows a card to flip out, Fallen One's on reveal, it'll pop out of the deck, and now you're ahead of the curve. And you have costs reduced as well. I think with the amount of costs being reduced, that will be happening and wanting to happen to ramp this card out. I think this is also a great week for Mobius M. Mobius to help counter a lot of the Fallen One play. So this deck is not only built on the idea of let me ramp out the Fallen One and have backup plans in according to that, but also playing tech against that deck to get ready for the week ahead. This deck right here is going to be the deck that I start with during the testing in the second half of this video. The third deck that I created, I'm calling Wipeout. It is a Surfer deck built on the idea of how Serra used to run for Surfer and still does run incredibly effectively for Surfer decks. But instead, we're playing a little bit into that Fenris Wolf package with a little bit of a ramp package to see if Fallen One going down on turn 4 is a possibility. So that way we can ramp out to it. Now, I've heard a lot of people talk about the Fallen One as a possible Serra replacement. I don't think it's a Serra replacement. I do think there are homes that it is better than Serra, like the Pixie deck. However, if it can also work in that slot, maybe we can capitalize on it differently. So I'm trying to do that via Surge, Luna Snow, Galacta to allow the extra pieces on top of it to say, here, let me play Galacta into Fallen One to get 2 extra power on the final turn. Okay, give me 8 energy to work with, and I can play as is on the final turn Cannonball Mercury to win that lane because I played it down with extra energy after Galacta. I like the surprise element that can come from this deck because you're not always sure what that final turn is going to be. There's a lot of tech in this deck. There's a lot of protection in this deck. I think that this is a deck that would do much better higher up in Infinite, but I do think it is a deck worth keeping an eye out for because Surfer is a very strong archetype, and anything that can be weaved into that, as well as the Cannonball Mercury shenanigans that exist. By the way, sidebar, what should we do about Cannonball Mercury? Here's my suggestion that we talked about earlier in the live stream. I think that they should make Mercury, personally, a if-or type card, where when it's played down here, enemy cards can't move. However, the second that Mercury moves, cards can also move out of that lane. So it's either it stays where it is and you know those cards can't move, or if you choose to move it out of the lane, that restriction is lifted. So you can't just move it over into a lane and then let Cannonball do his thing in a random lane that you can't project for. So that's my idea. I don't know. Let me know down in the comments below what you think. That's my idea of how you handle Cannonball Mercury. It's a package that is continually getting more and more oppressive. I would expect it to be addressed in the future. Lastly, a hand buff deck. I mean, it just made total sense. But there's one thing in particular I do need to shout out about this deck that I see a lot of people deck building for, and I think they're deck building wrong about it. And it's how you use Agony. You cannot give the extra 3 from Agony to the Fallen One, because the second the Fallen One reveals, the power on the Fallen One, so base 5, is what the energy will be set to. After that, the Agony effect happens and then adds the +3 onto the Fallen One. So you will not get 8 energy by doing that. However, that deck does represent, let me put this onto every other possible place. Let me throw it here onto the Sebastian Shaw, the Captain Marvel, the Scarlet Spider, etc. And getting those 4s out with Zabu early is obviously going to feel really good. Get the Galacta down early, get the Gwenpool down early, or worst case scenario, Mr. Fantastic First Steps or Fastos on turn 3. Start buffing the hand and then get the Fallen One down as the single play card on turn 5. I'm hoping that if all goes well with this deck, that this is an improvement from the Serra builds, because you're going to be able to have multiple different ways to get extra power onto the Fallen One, and the extra energy added to him because of his power not only makes that lane more difficult to contest, but more importantly, gives you more energy than the amount of cards you would have played because of Serra. So that's what I'm curious to see about this. We're going to head over there and try these decks. This is now the moment where the video is going to cut to a couple hours from now, and we will now see how those decks did. Zoom, and just like that, it is officially nighttime. It is 7:45 my time. We've been playing for the last 3 hours. We tried 4 different builds of the Fallen One. I'm just going to let it speak for itself. Yeah, it did not do good. Did not do good. Did not do good. No, did not do good. The card, let me repeat, did not do good. Couple of learnings though from the card on this initial impression. First off, most likely garbage. Straight up just garbage. But if you are going to make the card work, first off, Galacta felt best. Anytime I got Galacta into the Fallen One, I liked that play more so for the Surfer build, Surfer style of builds, right? It's an option to Sarah because you get 3 cards down, you got 3 extra energy. It's an option. But that's like working harder than getting Sarah. In the builds that had Nimrod, I don't think the Elixir line's the way to go. I think if you're trying to figure out either Shuri, Galacta, Symbiote, Spider-Man, I think you get rid of Shuri, to be honest. I think Galacta was more than good enough. In the deck that had Gwenpool, the hand buff deck, it's just not strong enough to keep up with the current meta. I just don't think it's like, even though it had barely a positive win rate, as you see, none of the decks out of all 45 games in total had a 40% win rate overall with the card in 4 different, very different archetypes: Surfer, hand buff, Nimrod, Zola shenanigans, and Pixie. Where do I think the card actually belongs? I do think there's hope in the Pixie builds. I really do. I really want Pixie builds to be something that I experiment a little bit more with, and I think that's a direction to go. I do think that there is a path with the Nimrod deck. It is not the Elixir build, though, and I think you have to pick and choose your battle, because if you're playing Black Panther, Fallen One, and Nimrod, that's a very thick deck. Really, as we've learned earlier in the video, we really have to articulate here. So you got to be really careful with. I think it's just a little clunky the way that it was built in this initial impression, but I do think that there is hope in that archetype for the Fallen One. I think you kind of need to just tweak a lot more than what I did on this initial impression. Overall, quick, fast, under 4 hours of play testing of the card, and also going up against the card several times. Couple of things I do want to also showcase with that I don't have here on this screen. Number one, the Wiccan builds that were also running Fallen One had some really, really crazy shenanigans go with them, and I was a fan of them. Number two, the Zabu builds that got the line of Zabu into Zabu into Symbiote Spider-Man into the Fallen One activate. That deck also, those combinations were also very good to go up against. He needs a little bit of help. I'm not going to lie. I think he needs a little bit of help. And I actually would be really curious to see how this card will perform at 5/6, because it feels awful having a brick card on turn 5 that you've waited this long for. And then on turn 5, it does nothing beneficial to you. If this card was a 5/6 that finally in your final turn, nothing else went right for you, you play it down, you just get 1 bonus energy. It's like a thicker version of a Psylocke. I'm okay with that. I think at 5/5, it's just meh, right? It's just meh. So is it good or is it garbage? In my opinion, it's garbage. I think the card will get adjusted in the future. I want it to be good, but I'm going to say, as of right now, until we find the right mechanic for it, just don't get the card. Save your tokens, use them for something else in the shop, or just for another week. So that's it. That's all I got for you right now. And if you please, and I sincerely mean it, if you made it this far in the video, I sincerely ask you, please, down in the comments, what did you think of this format of doing a card review, rather than posting a giant list of deck, constructions up on other socials and then kind of testing them, but not showing all of the results. I wanted to try something a little bit different. So your feedback is actually very important to me down below for doing what I'm hoping to start as a new series called Good or Garbage. So let me know down below. Try to do it a little bit different. I don't know. Am I adding gameplay on the end of this? Maybe not this one, but you let me know. Do you want to see gameplay? because I feel like that just extends the video and a lot of people just kind of at that point anyway. I don't know. You let me know down below. I appreciate y'all though. So as always, see you next time.